right. We're going to call to order the REDI Commission for 6/13/2024. We'll have the flag salute by Commissioner Denise Wilson.
If I could have you all please stand, face the flag, and your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
All right. All right. Commission Secretary Ramirez, can we get the roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Deutsch is not here. Commissioner Eventov. Yep. Chair Faulkner.
Here.
Commissioner Lecters is not here. Vice Chair Pastorian.
Here.
Commissioner Steed.
Here.
And Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commission Secretary. So announcement tonight, we're going to start with the Pride Month proclamation. We want to thank you for being here. Thank you for this opportunity to just celebrate our residents here and make sure we bring attention to all the impact that you have had over our city and the impact that you have on our nation. So thank you for being here, and we look forward to talking to you and celebrating you. And then we're going to continue our discussion on the topic of future home ownership opportunities for our youth will be the second thing we're going to talk about. So are there any public comments on non-agenda items?
No, we do not.
No public comments on non-agenda items. So again, can we approve the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All right.
I'm sorry, I have a motion by Commissioner Eventov and a second by Vice Chair Pastorian. Take the roll call. Commissioner Deutsch, absent. Commissioner Eventov. Yep. Chair Faulkner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pastorian.
Yes.
Commissioner Steed.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. And now we're going to go into business item number 1, is the Pride Proclamation for this month. First of all, thank you for being here. As a REDI Commission, we love celebrating our community. You're a major part of what makes our community great, and we want to make sure we have the opportunity to take the time to recognize you in this forum and let you know that we are here, we stand with you, we love you, and we are with you as we stand to make sure our city becomes a city that's united behind one another. So thank you for being here, and thank you for the opportunity to celebrate Pride Month and for being in the audience. Can I have a staff report, Director?
Yes, actually, the staff report will be very brief, sir, and then we'll go ahead and get right into the video. We are very happy to be here tonight, Chair and Commissioners. This is actually our 3rd year celebrating our Pride Month, and so we're very excited about that. And as you know, as a part of our motto with all of our proclamations, we attempt to ace it, so we definitely want to acknowledge, celebrate, and educate, and this video is always about the educate piece. So with that, Chris, if you want to go ahead and roll the video.
My name is Sergeant Major Kiana Washington. I work at the 65th Med Brigade as the Operations Sergeant Major. I think about like that young soldier, that young sergeant who says, man, I'll never be able to do this because I believe people will see me in this way. It's important for me to show them that you can make it. I'm very proud to say my wife. I'm very proud to say I'm married. I'm very proud for people to know who I am authentically, because I want my soldiers to share who they are with me authentically.
I have been very blessed with the opportunity to be a commissioned officer in the United States Army. At first, I was very anxious about it. But in my first assignment, I took a same-sex partner to a military ball. After that, I had soldiers actually come up to me afterwards and come out to me. It was really important, not for me, but for the very fact that they could see, it's okay, I can still be gay or lesbian, whatever it happens to be, and I can still be successful, I can still be a leader, I can still be a commissioned officer, I can go on and I can make powerful change.
I have LGBT posters and pictures of me and my partner up on my desk. So what I hope that it's doing is creating an open environment for everyone who comes in. I've had soldiers in the past or airmen in the past who have come up to my desk and opened up about their own sexuality and how they might have been nervous coming over to Korea, but they're good to see that there is more of an open community here.
You've got some people who are, closeted. They're, they're introverted. They're not extroverted yet. They're not comfortable. And I think it's very important for them to see how comfortable you can be being out.
It is okay to be yourself. And if you are a stronger person, let others see you be strong so that they know that they can be strong. And likewise, if you're not as strong as some of those other people, turn to those people and find the ones that'll love and support you because you're valued.
We all have something strong to bring to the table, and different points of view, perspectives, and ideas on how to accomplish the mission or how to do something that someone from a different background may not have thought of. And so I think that strengthens all of us as a whole. Love everyone. Don't be rude. Just accept people. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that you shouldn't give it a chance, and doesn't mean you should be afraid of it.
I hope that me being out and being gay in the Army, especially in uniform, that it inspires other people to be themselves. The LGBT community is here and it should be recognized, and whether people decide to recognize us or respect us, we will be here. We're not going anywhere.
We're all service members, and we're just trying to protect and defend our country. That's all we're trying to do. Who we are in our personal life is our personal life. All we're trying to do is just make sure that we're not going to get beat up in the streets, or that we don't have to worry about the safety of our friends or our families back home. We just want to go to work, we want to serve our country, and we want a life just like everyone else.
Hey everyone, this is Mayor Stu. Sorry I couldn't be with you there this evening, so I wanted to make this video.
Chris, you can go ahead and actually go ahead and roll that one, and then roll Supervisor Washington's as well. Since we got started in that, they both wanted to also be here but couldn't be here, so we'll just go ahead and include them now.
Hey everyone, this is Mayor Stu. Sorry I couldn't be with you there this evening, so I wanted to make this video to wish you all a happy Pride. I hope you enjoy the month and the community, and I hope you have a beautiful evening this evening.
Hi, I'm Chuck Washington, Riverside County 3rd District Supervisor. And it's a privilege to join you during Pride Month this year. In June, we devote special time to celebrate the lives and experiences of LGBTQI+ communities, and we unite to support equal justice and equal opportunity for all. In America, no one should have to fight through discrimination and hatred for their right to be treated with respect and dignity, for equitable access to medical care, housing, and the right to love who you love, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. These are your foundational freedoms. We take pride in you as our students, and your resiliency and courage will secure a greater future for the next generation who follow in your footsteps. Here's to marching on and continuing to strive for equality for all. Thank you.
And unfortunately, Councilmember Schwank also wanted to be here today, but was busy moving his daughter from college. So he definitely sends his well wishes for Pride Month as well.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate that, and great videos from our leadership. As of right now, we're going to go into assigned commission comments by Commissioner Eventall.
All right. Take it away, dude.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. One of the things I noticed when we announced Pride Month celebration, there were a bunch of questions that kind of popped up on social media. I wanted to, first, before we get into this, and I'll be quick, I promise, just kind of address the question, which was, and it was kind of an unusual question, but I thought it was worth it, which is, why should we have a month to celebrate who someone sleeps with. And the obvious answer is Pride Month isn't about who one sleeps with, but acknowledging people who may not necessarily fit traditional roles or traditional norms. And we are trying to build an understanding of the LGBTQIA communities and develop an appreciation for their contributions and identify the challenges that that particular community faces with health, with safety, with economic prosperity. This isn't exclusive to Pride Month necessarily. We try to do that with all the communities that we acknowledge throughout the year. But we should really focus on this because it's important to build an understanding and compassion as a city as well as a nation because honestly, there's a lot of persecution. Hate crimes continue to rise in most categories according to FBI stats. And in 2022, the latest stats I could find, hate crimes against LGBTQIA communities rose 17.2%. And they've been rising for other communities as well. But there's a reason why we want to build understanding, we want to build compassion, and we issue a lot of proclamations celebrating different cultures. And the purpose of this is not only to be welcoming and celebrating the different groups and their accomplishments and all areas, but we also want to identify as a commission, which we are commissioned to advise the city and identify where we might be able to do a better job as a city in serving all our residents and all our guests and making sure that this is a welcoming city that serves everybody fairly and inclusively. So that being said, I'm going to dive right into the slide presentation. I got to warn you guys, it's as dry as toast in some parts. Sorry, city folks, but whew. So bear with me as I read a bunch of stats. So there were approximately 1.2 million same-sex couples, according to the Census Bureau, in households in the United States in 2021, of which roughly 710,000 were married and 500,000 were unmarried. The average age of households in same-sex couples is 48.9 years, and that was lower than the opposite sex married couples, 52.8 years. And by the way, aging is another topic that we should be talking about in the near future, myself included. The average age of households in same-sex unmarried couples is 42 years old, and that's higher than the opposite sex unmarried couples of 39.9 years. The share of female-to-female and male-to-male couples with both partners employed did not differ significantly, though median household income in female same-sex couple households was $92,470 versus male same-sex couples, which is $116,800, and that begs questioning about equal pay. Both partners had at least bachelor's degrees in larger share same-sex, 29.6, than opposite sex, 18.1, unmarried couples. I told you it was dry as toast. A larger share of same-sex, 31.6%, than opposite sex, 18.4%. Married couples were interracial. And the District of Columbia has the highest percentage of same-sex couple households of any state or state equivalent. So we made it through that part. Now, LGBTQ rights timeline. This is just a sampling. Of course, the LGBTQ rights movement is far more complex and far more rich than what's presented here, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to hit a few highlights if you don't mind. In 1924, the Society of Human Rights, founded by Henry Gerber, is the first documented gay rights organization. In 1950, Harry Hayes established the first sustained gay rights movement, and that was founded here in LA. Pride Month, actually, let me back up. A couple of significant things. In 1953, Eisenhower banned homosexuals of any sort from federal government service or federal contractors, or in federal contractors. Fortunately, in 1958, the Supreme Court did find in favor of a First Amendment case called One Inc. versus Olean, and that was the first case in which the Supreme Court identified and acknowledged and found in favor of the gay population. 1966, the Mattachine Society holds a peaceful protest that leads to eventually opening up service at bars and restaurants to gay clientele. Getting back on track, 1967, we had January 1st, the Black Cat Tavern here in LA on Sunset Boulevard was raided by the LAPD, and that led to the first major protest in 1967, and it was actually in LA, and it predates the Stonewall event in 1969, which there was major protests in the LGBTQ community, and that one most folks pretty much know. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and in 1974, Kathy, and we're going to destroy her last name, Kozachenko, was the first openly gay person to win a seat in any election in the United States, and she won city council seat in Ann Arbor, Michigan. In 1977, the New York Supreme Court ruled that transgender woman Renee Richards could play at the United States Open tennis tournament as a woman. And then fast forwarding, President Clinton, under his administration, implemented Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then almost 20 years later, that was repealed, ending the ban on gay men and women from serving openly in the military. The designation for the first national monument to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer rights was established as the Stonewall Monument. And in 2022, the president signed a Respect for Marriage Act into law, which requires that individual states recognize same-sex and interracial marriages that were lawfully performed in other states. And this is just, of course, just the tip of the iceberg, and I do apologize for having to omit. There is one thing I did overlook, which is in 2009, we signed into law the Matthew Shepard Law, which expanded federal hate crime law to include gender, sexual orientation, gender ID, and disabilities as any violence to those communities as hate crime. So I wanted to include that. But the struggle continues. There's still a bunch of court cases. There's still a fight to do everything from get a same-sex partner's insurance on the books to just getting a cake made in Colorado. So the fight is real and it continues. And I thank you. That is all. So let's ace it. Let's acknowledge, celebrate, and educate.
Thank you so much. Great job, Commissioner Eventhoff. You guys see me put these things on, right? This lighting is not good in here. I know I'm not having the same problem. All right, so we're going to read the city proclamation here. The City of Temecula proclamation, whereas Pride Month commemorates the June 1969 uprising at Stonewall in New York City, where members of the LGBTQ community and allies rose to fight discrimination laws that have been since declared unconstitutional. And whereas the month of Pride is celebrated through various recognitions and activities in support of LGBTQ community locally, statewide, nationally, and internationally. And whereas LGBTQ individuals, families, and supporters are an integral part of the fabric of the community and contribute to its overall economy and quality of life. And whereas LGBTQ members are represented in the public and private sector as professionals, business owners, educators, students, volunteers, veterans, and more. And whereas Temecula appreciates the value and dignity of each person and acknowledges the importance contributions of the LGBTQ community to promote principles of equality, acceptance, and love. And whereas it is imperative that young people in our community feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers and community leaders, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or other expression. And whereas all are welcome in the city of Temecula to live, work, and play, and every individual and family of any diversity deserves a safe and happy home supported by friends and neighbors. And now, therefore, I, Mayor James Stewart, on behalf of the city of Temecula, hereby proclaim the month of June 2024 to be Pride Month in recognition and support of the LGBTQ individuals and families of our community. Signed, James Stewart, Mayor, and Randy Joel, City Clerk. Thank you. right. Are there any
Sheriff
public
Faulkner,
comments?
at this time, I would like to remind the public that we do have a few proclamations that folks had requested in advance. So those are on the table next to the podium. But at any given time, any member of the community can contact our office, the city clerk's office, via email, phone call, in any which way, and request a proclamation for Pride Month, and we would be more than happy to provide them with one. So we just want to make sure that tonight is not your only opportunity. Please feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to supply one for you.
Thank you so much, Director. Commission Secretary, are there any public comments?
Yes, we do. We have 6 public speakers, and they'll each have up to 5 minutes. First speaker is Jeffrey Marks, to be followed by Michael Crawford.
Thank you.
So my family moved here about 12, 15 years ago, I forget exactly, and I was already a fully functioning gay adult living in New York and LA, and I would come and visit, and every time I'd come and visit, I kind of felt weird in Temecula. I kind of felt, a little more conservative than I used to. I don't feel comfortable holding my boyfriend's hand down the street. Maybe let's not wear the rainbow B-52's t-shirt to the grocery store. So I even once had dinner with my stepsister at a restaurant, I forget which one at this point, but I was kind of just reminiscing about a bad date that had gone south. And it wasn't like rated R, it was very PG talk, but I was talking to my sister and a man came over from a table, put his hand on our table, kind of crouched down and said, "This is a family establishment and we do not need to hear this type of talk." And me being the sassafras that I am, I said, "Well, this is me and my family and I'm going to talk however I want to talk. Thank you and have a good day." I left, but that really kind of gave an impression of what Temecula was to me from someone who isn't from here, didn't grow up here. I went on to work in television. I did a lot of shows. I won an Emmy for a show called Love on the Spectrum, which we did a lot of queer stories for on Netflix. And another show that was very dear to my heart is on HBO called We're Here. And it takes drag queens across America to small conservative towns, and they put on a one-night drag show with the people that they meet in the community. Well, our producers in the height of COVID said, let's film somewhere in California before we go out into the world. We want to see what the COVID rules are, just to kind of get our feet wet. And I said, well, you know what? I think I have an idea as a place to look. And I looked right here in my own backyard, and I put together an episode, which you may not have heard of, but it's on HBO. It's called We're Here. There's an hour episode for just Temecula. And I interviewed tons of queer people here in the community, allies. I even tried to get in touch with a lot of people on City Hall at the time, which didn't really pan out, but that's okay. We pulled together a great episode. I would love to have heard Mayor Stu's video because he did talk to me, even though I don't think he really wanted to talk to me, but he was very nice and he talked to me nonetheless. But I would have loved to have actually seen that video. And we put together this great episode, and now, since the TV industry has totally taken a crap with artificial intelligence, it's coming for you in every industry. But I have had to move back here into my mom's house in Temecula, which she was living in wine country, and now she's just over on Murrieta Hot Springs. And it's been kind of like a culture shock for me to go, oh no, I'm going back to the place where I never kind of felt welcomed. I was never really from, but now I'm calling home. So today, coming here with my niece, who just graduated high school here in Temecula, I wanted to come and say thank you for this proclamation. And this is kind of part of my step, kind of reclaiming comfortability here in the Temecula area. So thank you so much. That's all. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Michael Crawford, to be followed by Coda Dickinson and Ryan Rodriguez.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank every one of you for what you're doing here tonight. You know, I'm a loud and proud member of the LGBT community, and watching you guys do this proclamation really means a lot to me. And in light of what's going on in the city council and the school board here, you know, you guys are fighting for those of us that are kind of marginalized, and I'm really grateful I'm glad to be part of the community, and I'm a longtime member of Temecula, and I love watching the change, and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Next speakers are Coda Dickinson and Ryan Rodriguez, to be followed by Joy Zendejas.
Hello, my name is Coda. I am the president of the Great Oak GSA, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hi, I'm Ryan, or Rose, and I am the vice president of the GSA at Great Oak.
Today, we would like to focus on the mental health struggles of the LGBTQ community and ultimately explore why the celebration of Pride is so important to us. As many of you may know, the journey to find yourself is long, strenuous, and challenging. There are so many difficulties found through our lives, and each and every one of us overcomes these challenges in diverse ways. However, for many LGBTQ individuals, the journey to self-acceptance can be a little different. Studies such as the yearly statistics done by the Trevor Project have shown that LGBTQ kids are 4 times as likely to commit suicide compared to their cisgender and heterosexual peers. These disparities are not a result of their identities, but rather stem from the way our society has and continues to treat the LGBTQ community. Especially seen in schools, there's an extreme tendency among teens to exclude and discriminate the LGBTQ community, mainly out of fear of being different, but while you may be thinking they're just kids, it's not like they know better. Imagine growing up in a world where you are constantly othered, where your identity is questioned, and to top it off, the kids at school are practically taught that it is wrong to be around you. That hurts, right? Not only do LGBTQ kids face rejection by their peers, but also by their own family. Receiving love and acceptance from a family is important to everyone. However, many families across the world have shown that their love is conditional. I, for one, can say that it's not everyone, but it is enough to leave some with lifelong emotional scars, relationship instability, and struggles to accept and love ourselves. The external and internal struggles are exemplified in people of color, those with disabilities, and those from different cultural and religious backgrounds, making the journey through struggles of mental health even more complex. So why is Pride so important? Pride is a beacon of hope and affirmation that we are allowed to be ourselves, that we are here and we are not leaving. It's also a reminder that we have and will continue to fight for LGBTQ rights across the world, so that one day we will be able to live freely and without fear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Joy Zendejas, to be followed by Preston Miller.
Hi everyone, my name is Joyce and I'm a medical assistant. I work at an internal office and I'm also the event co-director of Temecula Valley Pride, which we just opened our first center last month. As a proud member of the Temecula and the LGBTQIA community, this month is Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month, an occasion that brings the LGBT community together with their friends, family, and allies to take pride in themselves and their many achievements. Temecula Valley Pride recognizes lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, allied community members for their countless contribution to the city of Temecula. Throughout our history, brave LGBTQ activists, advocates, and civil rights leaders have fought for equality and inclusion. Their readiness and willingness to advocate has made our city, state, and nation a safer and more inclusive place for all. Pride is about acceptance and equality, and highlights a diverse community that has long fought for acceptance. Recognizing and acknowledging pride and the LGBTQ community promotes inclusion and allows both young and old community members to feel welcome and makes for a better future in Temecula. As we celebrate LGBT Pride Month together, let's take pride in our great city and thriving community. Happy Pride, Temecula.
Next speaker is Preston Miller, to be followed by Jeff Camarchero and Eli Radford.
Happy Pride. Happy Pride, despite a school board that forces outing policies onto children because they see being queer as a mental illness that needs to be fixed. Happy Pride, despite a city council member who tries to force her religious beliefs onto her city. Happy Pride, despite widespread ignorance and bigotry, some of which is in this room, in this city. So yes, Happy Pride. Happy Pride because clearly it is still needed. As long as there is hate, ignorance, and bigotry, then pride needs to remain, to show that despite you, we exist, and we are proud. We will not go back into the closet no matter how many of us are attacked or murdered. We will not compromise on equal rights and representation. You don't want us being married? Womp womp. I don't want you acting like an idiot, but at least I don't make laws to stop you from doing that. I don't impose any laws stopping you from having religious beliefs, so leave us alone. You say that we're forcing our beliefs onto you. Yeah, by that logic, the guy who comes before city council meetings to do a prayer or whatever is forcing religion onto me. But you don't see me complaining. Because I don't think it's that deep. And hateful and ignorant groups say that queer people are groomers. Nobody forces anybody to be queer. I've seen a whole lot of churches force their beliefs onto kids using fear tactics. I've seen a whole lot of pastors exposed to be groomers, and I see that you speak, and I see that you don't speak about that, and you don't criticize that, but you'll come after queer people. Interesting. You know, a few months ago, I wasn't even involved locally, but I'm so proud to see so many people come together who couldn't simply stand idly by and watch marginalized communities be attacked. Queer was always here, and it always will be, because Lord knows no matter how much you pray for me, for us to disappear off the face of this earth, I remain. We remain, and we always will in some way. So yes, Happy Pride.
Thank you.
Our final speakers are Jeff Camarchero and Eli Radford.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Faulkner and Commissioners, Randy, my dear. This is weird for me to be here. But on the other hand, it's like coming home, so it's great to be here. Many of you know our story. Some of you may not, so I'm going to bore the rest of you, and we're going to tell you a little bit about who we are and why we're here. You know, I was here last year in the conference center. It was a little more ruckus, and there were some people who weren't quite so supportive as those here tonight. A couple of years ago, more than a couple, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I could have been one of those people. Mm-hmm. But something happened, and I'm going to let Eli tell you a little bit about who he is, and then I'll come back.
Hi, I'm Eli Radford. I'm a member of the Temecula community, and I'm also a member of the queer community. I'm here with my beautiful wife and child, and I have a business locally. It's a barbershop, and that's where I met Jeff.
That's it, huh? Okay. This is a little bit new to him. Yeah, to me, it's like, what the... But what happened was I was given a a gift 3 years ago, almost to the day. Do you realize that? 3 years ago, on Father's Day, of my son and I were given a gift of an afternoon at a men's hair spa. Had no idea what that was. But it was very pleasant. It was a haircut, and my son and I both had beards, so it was beard shaping and hot towel shave. And I was being taken care of in the back of the shop by somebody, an older gentleman, and my son was being taken care of out front. Well, I got finished first, and I came out to see how he was doing, and I saw this person cutting his hair that made me feel uneasy. Now remember, I'm 77 years old, and I've been a lifelong conservative Republican. Please don't put me over here with a lot of those other guys, because I'm not there, but and never have been. But it was just so foreign to me to see this person who looked like a 15-year-old boy. You've heard this before. Tattoos up and down, a nose ring, all kinds of things and places, and it just was unsettling. And I said to myself, I would never let this person touch me. And I went home that night, and I felt absolutely horrible about myself and what I was thinking. Because that's never been who I am, but maybe it was. And so I said to myself, darn it, next time I need a haircut, I'm going to book this person. Either that was out of guilt or curiosity, I don't know, but I did. And it was a bit uncomfortable for both of us because Eli didn't like me as much as I didn't like him. And so, but, you know, what made me especially nervous was that he had weapons in his hand. And suddenly the, you know, demon barber of Fleet Street came to mind. But we got through it, and we had, you know, kind of idle conversation and got to know each other a little bit in that first meeting. And I loved the haircut, and I'm glad Stu's not here because I needed a barber. I didn't say that. And so I went back the second time. And we got to talking a little bit more to each other. And I went back the third time. And by the third time, I walked out of the shop saying to myself, I love this kid. I mean, he's just terrific. And all of those things that had bothered me, just one by one, melted away. And I found, and I never told you this, there was another little prejudice that I had, that somebody that looked like you couldn't be intelligent. How awful is that? And yet what I found as we started to know each other better and better was an intellect that exceeds mine. And that's not easy because I'm pretty good. But anyway, one day I was sitting in the barber chair. There's two of us, so we get 10 minutes, right?
No.
There's two of us, but anyway.
No, sir. Y'all should
have
split it up. You get 5 minutes. I got to be consistent.
Okay, we'll go very, very quickly. So I was sitting in the chair one day, and I was joking to Eli and said, this friendship of ours is so ridiculous, we should write a book about it. And I was joking, and he got excited, and then I got excited, and we went and had a cup of coffee. And, you know, in February, we published the book, and it took us a year and a half. It's called The Old Man and the Queer, and most of you know it. And it's for anyone who has any of those kinds of feelings that I had, and then to realize that you can open your mind and your heart and you can change, I can tell you, it's liberating.
Yeah.
And I thank you, as the commission, the city council, proclamations like this tonight, and the philosophy that is behind them really is helping to change the world, and we all need to do that. So we thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Chair Faulkner, we do have one more speaker.
All right, thank you.
Omar Abelais.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I know it was the last minute. I didn't realize we were submitting paperwork beforehand. As I said, my name is Omar. I am a co-chair for outreach for the Temecula Pride Foundation with Joyce, who previously was up here. And I've never been prouder to belong to something in my life. I'm relatively new to Temecula. I grew up in San Diego, and you know, I kind of grew up in a bubble where it was just us and my family and a bunch of immigrants, and we kind of did our thing, and we really didn't like kind of look outside. We grew up playing things like Smear the Queer, and not really realizing what that was and what that meant. And as I got older and realized what we were saying and what we were doing, and that those were actual people that we were pretending to, you know, squish when we're playing basketball or football or whatever we're doing, I needed to take a deep dive into look into myself. But you know, that came along, high school, whatever, and then I moved up here, and I met some people that really changed my life. And my two friends, Eden and Princess, they came up, and we love to go dancing, we love to go hang out, and you know, they just let me know, they're like, hey, you know, we really don't feel that comfortable in Temecula. It's not a place where we are very happy to go out dancing, where they're able just to kind of be themselves. So I wanted to change that. I Googled, you know, queer spaces in Temecula, what to do, and I found the Temecula Pride Foundation. I went to one of their coffee meetups. I met the president, Jamie. She's an amazing woman, and I just started talking to people. I just walked up to random people and said, hello, my name's Omar. I have queer friends, and we want to hang out with more queer people. And that, you know, got me to meet some amazing, amazing people. There are some people here who I got to meet through that program, Chase and Beck. We've become pretty good friends, and I've appreciate their insight. We've seen some, you know, movies, we've talked, and I look forward to meeting them more. I guess what I'm up here for is to say is to the people who are sitting behind me, please come up and say hi to me. Please come up and be involved with the Temecula Pride Foundation. Look us up on Instagram. We really want to build a community for you guys, and for you to realize that there are a lot of pockets of queer people in Temecula and in Riverside and Murrieta, but if we come together and we bring those pockets and form a real, true community, that there's power in that presence, and that you guys really will have some influence here. And I'm so proud to see what's been going on and to be a part of this. And I look forward to growing with you guys and to seeing what's going to come next. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last public comment. Outstanding. Great job. Thank you for all those public comments. And Director, it looks like we have a TCSD report. Director Russo.
Hey there, good evening, everyone. I just have a couple of slides. I wanted to just let everybody know about some upcoming events we have. Our summer concert series kicks off Thursday, June 20th, 7 p.m. It's actually going to be out here, and I don't know if any of you saw the funny little reel they did on social media. They did a great job, but it used to be at the CRC Amphitheater. This year it's going to be here in front of City Hall. So we encourage everyone to come out. And on 3 of the dates, it will overlap with the market that's out there now. The first one will be June 27th and July 11th, July 18th. So highly encourage everyone to come out, enjoy the market, the concert. It'll be great fun. Next slide, please. And then, of course, for the 4th of July, we have our extravaganza and our parade. For future reference, the entries deadline has passed for this parade since it's coming up, but since we had TV Pride here, I was just going to say, any groups that want to apply, if you go online before the actual event, we have an open call for organizations that want to be in our parade. We would love to see representation from the LGBTQ community in our parades. So on the 4th of July, we have the parade out here in Old Town in the morning, starting at 10 a.m., and people line up way in advance, so get here early. And then we take it over to Ronald Reagan Sports Park from 2 to 10 p.m. with fireworks at 9 p.m. So fun for the whole family. And knowing that Temecula does not always have the reputation as being the most welcoming community, I just want to emphasize that in community services, TCSD, we strive to create spaces, programs, events that where everyone is welcome. So if you ever have any issues to the contrary, I want you to feel free to reach out to me personally. My information's on the website. Let me know if you ever have any concerns. And then finally, our library has a display of LGBTQ books with LGBTQ authors and or topics of interest to the community, featuring none other than The Old Man and the Queer as well. So be sure to check it out if you haven't already. So that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Director Russo. I'm going to do a little something different. I want to give the opportunity for the commissioners to make a couple comments at this point around the Pride Proclamation. If you guys can be quick with your comments, because we have another business item, and then I'll close this out and give some direction right after that. So I want to start it off, Commissioner Ledgers.
Well, thank you, Chair Faulkner. I'm still kind of catching my breath. First, my apologies for being late. I was coming from a work meeting and my flight was delayed, but I'm really glad I got here, really glad to hear the comments that I heard, and really glad to look out into this space and to see you all, to see the beautiful tapestry of diversity in our community. And as our director said just a moment ago, that this is a welcoming community. This is a community that is family-oriented. We don't succumb to fear. We don't succumb to othering. We center justice. And anytime that oppression happens, it's a threat to everybody. So we can't use faith or fear to create identities for other people that we then vilify. And so I just am really encouraged by the comments that I heard tonight. Jeff, thank you for you and Eli sharing that. It's a marvelous story and a witness that we don't need to sit in our fear. We can explore other people. We can build relationships. And love will win. Love covers, right? Love will win. And so really privileged to be part of this commission and very proud. Well, pun kind of intended. Very proud to be part of this community. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for being bold and brave and standing up for yourselves and for pride.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Steed.
Well, I am just so excited that we're having such a peaceful, wonderful evening celebrating Pride. I can't tell you how much I'm excited about that. So congratulations to all of you for being here and for allowing yourself to be here and to celebrate this moment with our beautiful city. And you do nothing but add color and joy to it. So I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate us being educated by Commissioner Aventhoff, what he had to say. I appreciate our LGBTQ community coming up here and sharing with us their mental health struggles. I think that is really important. It is part of the education. And I actually shared on my Instagram today just something that I read, and it goes back to what Adam said, but if you ever wonder why Pride is necessary, simply go read the comments section of any news story about the Pride Parade and Festival. That's why it's necessary. So as a community, we need to do better. We need to think better and do better and act better, and we end up with a community like this. So thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Steed. Commissioner Evantall.
So the reason I'm so passionate about this topic is because being the gray-haired person on the board, growing up in the 80s, I saw some friends go away because of the lack of care during the AIDS crisis and lost a lot of friends. So forgive me for being a little passionate. And so I want to talk a little bit about something that went on in this city. And it was really co-opting, politicizing the pain, the challenges that students face in our school district, and turning it into a political rally, turning it into a political issue, turning it into a way for people to line their political coffers or build tribalism of us versus them, and not appreciating the pain, the challenges that kids go through in this very difficult time for many. And so I guess the question of parental rights really shouldn't be a question of parental rights. It's more of a question of parental responsibilities. Not the school's responsibility to out a child. It's a parent's responsibility to know their child, create a welcoming space, be able to have a conversation, know what's going on in their kids' lives. And so we had some successes in that sphere. And there are a lot of people here who fought for making the school district better. And I want to congratulate them and thank them for their efforts. You're in this room, you know who I'm talking about. And one last thing. I thought I'd get through this. God damn. If you feel like you are alone, there's a place for love here. You can come here. We can find folks that you can talk to. You can talk to us. This is a safe space. This is a place where you can get the support that you need. So we're here for you. You don't have to go through anything alone. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eventhoff. Commissioner Wilson?
So he always does this, so it's all good. So I just want to say thank you guys for being here. I'm representing my pride. Of course, I have a lot of family members that are part of the LGBTQ+, so I so wholeheartedly support. But I'm just so glad that you guys are here because I did know about the Temecula Valley Pride Center. So I'm hoping you guys will all go and support them. I didn't know about the Temecula Pride Foundation. It is power and support and teamwork. I was speaking to one of the Starbucks owners off of the one by Target. She says, Denise, we're going to be there and represent because did you know Starbucks has an LGBTQ+ support group? This is Starbucks. And I'm like, definitely share that with everyone because we want them to know we support them here in Temecula. Did not know about The Old Man and the Queer, so I definitely will have to read that book. But I wanted to share something with you guys. When people say, why do you support them, or why are we even doing this here in Temecula, it's because they're human like everybody else. It's because they have emotions and they have opinions and belief like everybody else. It's because they've been oppressed for being themselves like everybody else. And I can identify that. And it's because they were born to be who they are. So if you don't want to support them, then leave. If you don't want to support them, then do what you do best and hide under a rock. We don't need to hear the negativity. We need support. We need to be a community of love, and that's what it's all about. So I want to bless you guys, and I say keep strong in what you're doing because we here, we support you. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Wilson. Vice Chair Pastorian.
Thank you, Chair Faulkner and Commissioners. I echo what all of my colleagues up here say wholeheartedly. We have seen the struggles over the last several years and stepped in waters that we didn't even realize were so deep at some points in time. And so the fact that we're still here and doing what we do, and you're still there doing what you do is really a testament to not only pride in and of itself, but what the city is doing. I want to thank everybody in the room tonight, certainly, for continuing to show not just this commission, but this city of Temecula that we all love and care for, why. You are showing us our why. Every single word that is spilled tonight at that mic and everything that maybe you didn't get a chance to say, but you felt inside, we see you. We feel you, and we get it. I could not be any more proud of all of the young people that are here tonight, and I always say that. Being somebody who works in education, I see it all the time, and it reminds me that not every space is safe. It's just not. But it is up to you to make the space that you hold safe. And so you have that power. And you can do that for people. You can change, like Jeff says, you can change. And Jeff, thank you for being such an inspiration and somebody who is a pillar in this community and standing up and showing us. I know, exactly, right? It's Eli, because we're never gonna take some of that, but it's together that we're able to see the whole picture. And that picture is really quite beautiful when we look at it. So I really wanna take that moment and appreciate everybody who has been, like Commissioner Evantov have said, who has been a person who has made a place safe for someone, who has been the ear, the shoulder to cry on, the person who says, get back up, you can do it, keep going. Those are important people, and you are more powerful for being that person. Many of you know I work additionally in other youth organizations, and this is an interesting time for me. Lots of youth summer camps are taking place, and lots of overnight things are happening, and I will tell you the number of questions around the LGBTQ plus community and how that is supported within camps is really quite interesting to see how people react and the things that we didn't even have to think about years ago because so many of the community were afraid to come out. And now we're having these conversations and I will tell you, one of the greatest things that Randy said to us from very early on was it is about the conversation. And so I will tell you all sitting here, it is about the conversation. Have the conversation, start the discussion, and do it from a place of love and acceptance in terms of what we're trying to do. Create that safe place and make sure that we're making a difference. So I again, thank you to the City of Temecula. It is a beautiful time, and we are full of pride, certainly up here, and I can see it out there. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right, before I close comments, we have a public comment. We're going to allow to come in, is that correct?
Yes, we have one more.
All right.
Carla, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name.
Everybody else.
Well, thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. I just had to come up here and say thank you to each and every one of you. I have been honored and blessed to meet each and every one of you individually as genuinely great people and people who have shown me nothing but love. I came into this community about 6 years ago because of work, had no clue all of the conservatism that was in this community because I come from North San Diego County where, you know, everybody's just happy and prideful, I guess. During this time of being a representative for my company in the community, I have had so many people that come up to me and always tell me thank you for being you. And I didn't realize how much of an impact that was until I'd say, you know, within the last year and a half or so, especially a couple weeks ago, I received an award on behalf of the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce for Valley Young Professional of the Year. And when I got up there, I just gave a speech just because of what came out of my mouth. I didn't prepare anything. And I was very truthful in what I said. And I shared about my beautiful wife, you know, and how much her support has helped me in everything that I do for this community. Last year, the City of Temecula honored me in selecting me to do an amazing video for them. And I got to fly around Temecula, which was so much fun. And a part of me at first questioned why I was being selected, and then I just stood up and decided, okay, well, you know what? Whatever reason I was chosen, I'm just gonna have fun with it. And there was negativity, a lot of negativity, but I want to tell everybody in the crowd, it did get to me for a little while, but I had to stand up and put that aside and let it roll right off, because no matter what, I wasn't gonna let those negative comments and that hate stop me from being who I am. And thanks to each and every one of you here, I just really want to say thank you for allowing all of us this opportunity, for bringing this group together and making us all feel safe in the city of Temecula. And everyone in the crowd, continue being yourself. Don't let the hate scare you and put you under a rock, because that's not where you need to be. You need to be you. And just share that love, especially for the younger ones that are struggling a lot with that. And again, it just shook me. After I got that award, I have to say, a few people came up to me, one gentleman in particular, saying he left the city years ago because he feared for his life. And he just said, thank you for your speech. And I told him, I said, there's times where I wonder, okay, well, if somebody's gonna do something, I have the protection someone up above. And that's all I need. And if somebody wants to do a hateful crime, then that's on them, right? But I'm not gonna show that hate towards them. I'm not gonna do what they're doing to us. So thank you all again. I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. Sorry, I never do this talking up here, but appreciate you guys. Love you all.
Thank you. Awesome. So thank you for all those comments to our commissioners. Everybody made a public comment tonight. We appreciate you. I remember when we were put together as a REDI commission, and people hadn't even met me before started saying, if you're about REDI and you're about race, equity, diversity, inclusion, you're the devil, and you don't align with our politics and things like that. And guess what? We said we're digging in. We're not going anywhere. Because we knew that this is important work. We knew that the commission was put together for a reason, and that is to really celebrate, recognize all subsets of our community. We're all better together. We're all human beings. We all impact the city of Temecula. Your money, the funds you spend here help build the city, keep the city thriving. The impact that you do with our businesses, and many of you have kids that go to the schools here, we're all Temecula, and we're what makes Temecula strong. So don't let anybody minimize you or put you down based on who you are. You stand tall. Stand tall in who you are. So, I just wanted to bring that up, that, we were called everything under the sun, but everybody stood and said, hey, we're digging in. REDI Commission is what we need as a city. And when many cities run away from this work, I applaud the city of Temecula because they ran right into it. All right, they were not fearful. They knew they were going to take it, but guess what? They never said, we're getting rid of REDI. We're not going to support it. We're going to stand with it. So I applaud the leadership here that stuck by us and really make sure that we stayed on point. Yeah, especially Director Joel. She has been an advocate. She has been a leader, and she has been one of the ones that's really pouring into us, mentoring, guiding, and making sure that we stay the course on this work. So amazing job. And Erica, you as well. We appreciate both of you guys because we know that you put the work in to make sure that this commission would continue to thrive and continue to be here. So thank you so much. I'm going to make a couple comments, and then we'll give some directions for a picture so we can move on to the next business items. First of all, we want to thank you for joining us today as we come together to celebrate Pride Month. This is a time when we honor the incredible diversity within our communities, acknowledge the struggles and achievements of the LGBTQ plus community, and recommit ourselves to the ongoing fight for equality and justice for all. As we celebrate Pride Month, let us stand up against bigotry and injustice wherever we see it, while supporting policies and practices that promote equality and inclusion. Your contributions to our society are invaluable. You are seen and you are valued. Thank you for coming tonight and celebrating Pride Month, and continue to work with us as we acknowledge, we celebrate, and we educate our community about the people that are here that make it strong. So thank you so much for that. So now for the picture, we're going to have this mess that we had before. So let me take control. So we want to have everybody come down to the front. Shauna is in the back. We're going to get right in front of the podium, and we're going to look at her back there. And we're not going to do selfies and pictures right now. If you want to do that, we're going to do that out in the foyer because we have other business items to go. So let's come down, get in front of the podium, face Shauna, so we can take a picture. Come on now, please.
We would love to see everybody that is here
Everybody
just celebrate loud and proud in front of the podium, and just look to the back of the chambers at Shauna, our fabulous photographer. And Shauna, you can give instructions on fun pick, jump pick, whatever you need to do. Center in, everyone. Center in around that podium. We're going to need to center in. There's a lot of gaps. We'll stand right here. Center in. Shauna, is that going to work?
Okay, now everybody throw your hands up. Just about celebrating.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your words. I appreciate that. All right, y'all remember what I said? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, man. I got the book too. I'll get with you once I get done reading. Yes. All right. And here we go with these selfies. Leave it up to Commissioner Wilson and Evanthoff to take selfies. Hey, thank you so much.
No, I want to introduce you to people.
Thanks so much. All right, commissioners, let's go.
You're welcome. It's so good seeing you. See you on the street.
Noah.
All right, y'all ain't got to go, but y'all got to, as the saying goes.
Go home. You can't stay here.
What is it? Okay. Look at it. Well, we'll just wait on Commissioner Wilson
Wilson and Pastorian.
and Pastorian.
I think they were the ones the last time too.
Hello.
We definitely want to thank our guest speakers from Habitat for Humanity and the county, as well as the EDC, for being here and celebrating Pride with us today as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. I know. I guess we wanted to close that door back there. All right, Director, I guess we're going into the second business item. So we're going to continue to discuss the topic on future home ownership opportunities for youth and receive related presentation staff report.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Chris, if you can go ahead and bring up the slide presentation, please. All right. So commissioners, chair tonight, agenda item number 3, your last item. It is to continue the discussion on the topic of future homeownership opportunities for our youth and to receive the related presentations from some of our service providers in the region. Next slide. So I do want to set the stage a little bit. As you know, the City Council unanimously provided some direction to this commission to consider the topic of youth housing. Specifically, they wanted you to go ahead and try to identify some of the barriers that the next generation may be facing now and into the future as they seek home ownership opportunities in Temecula and the region. They wanted you to analyze these barriers to determine if existing community providers, resources, agencies exist to address those particular barriers and match those particular barriers with the provider. They then wanted you to identify and analyze any gaps. So which barriers are out there that are going unaddressed and need a little bit more attention, and then go ahead and make some recommendations to the City Council on those gaps. Next slide, please. So on February 8th, the Commission conducted a very high-level discussion based on your own professional expertise in various fields, including the military, education, real estate, nonprofit associations, and you identified several barriers. That night, the students were also, several students were in the audience as well, and they actually expressed a desire to be a part of the conversation as well while they were here. So we went ahead and did an informal survey, non-statistically verifiable informal survey that we sent out through my counterpart at the school district, the diversity coordinator, and surprisingly, we ended up getting 354 responses back, so that was wonderful. I think it's because we let them do it on their cell phones, and it was only 5 questions, so it didn't take you long. So on April 11th, the commission went ahead and reviewed the results of that informal student survey and reviewed the placement of certain barriers into identifiable buckets. Next slide, please. What we noticed was that there were several overlaps in what the students saw as barriers and what the commission as adults were seeing as barriers. And so we went ahead and we tried to focus those. It was a long list of anywhere from 50 to 75 different barriers, and we were trying to consolidate those as much as we can. And these are the four buckets, so to speak, that we consolidated those in. Economic development, advocacy, education, and partnerships. In the economic development space, there were many overlapping comments in regards to employment opportunities matching housing costs, local jobs matching local housing prices, overall cost of living, and just market conditions and access to money generally. In the advocacy space, there was comments about inflation, interest rates, overall housing development and variety in stock, funding programs, and these were all kind of tied to what's happening in Sacramento as well. And it was timely because we were just coming off of participating with Habitat for Humanity in their advocacy days, and then in May went ahead and participated with the Cal Cities advocacy days, and housing was a big priority on both of those. And then education was its own bucket because a lot of the comments around having knowledge about processes, specifically home ownership opportunities, loan programs, debt to ratio issues, financial stresses, wealth creation, credit card uses, all of these things, came up. And so those kind of went into that education space. And then a lot of conversation around partnership. There are a variety of folks that are doing things maybe in silos around housing, but is there opportunity to go ahead and co-create solutions? The city, the county, state housing related agencies, youth centers. What is our local school district doing? What are our local colleges, 4 years and 2 years? Do they have housing departments off campus and on campus? Banking institutions, we know, I gave the example of the one bank who partnered with their local community to create a comic book around financial resources and how that's been incorporated into the curriculum. So just a lot of opportunity for public and private partnership. Next slide, please. So tonight, that's kind of the recap. So tonight, we're here to hear from 3 of our local service providers, Habitat for Humanity, County Housing Department, and I believe it's Workforce Development, and then Economic Development Coalition. We're going to receive their presentations and then kind of see what are the things that they're already working on, working towards, and then see if there's, based off of their presentations and any conversation you all have and engage in together, then staff will be trying to post after this meeting, go back to that original list and identify which gaps were not being addressed at all, which are being addressed somewhat, and which have pretty good coverage. Then what we'll end up doing is at the next meeting, actually July, you have summer recess, so in August, good, because we'll need the time. So in August, we'll come back and we'll present you with a draft recommendation report to the City Council on what we saw as the gaps. And then you all can confirm that, and then we'll be setting up a joint meeting with the City Council and the REDI Commission to go ahead and talk about those particular gaps and what the process was and how we came to that conclusion. And that particular joint meeting will occur at a regular City Council meeting in the future. So something to look forward to. That will likely be in September or in October. So with that, I will go ahead, unless you have any questions of staff at this time, we'll go ahead and invite up our guests.
Thank you.
And I'm not gonna go in any particular order. If you guys have a preference, that's fine. You all know each other, so I'll let you go up as you deem appropriate.
Apparently my PowerPoint came up first, so. Draw the short straw, and I feel like Debbie Downer after that being part of it. I'm proud to be here, part of the Pride celebration. It wasn't expected, and I'm glad but like I said, it's a little more somber topic than what we just went through. But my name is Mike Walsh. I'm Assistant Director with Riverside County's Housing and Workforce Solutions Department. I'm thankful to the chair, thankful to Randy for inviting us to speak. You have such great people here in the city of Temecula already that Luke and others could probably do this presentation, but trying to also, what we're also doing more broadly in the county and some of the challenges that are coming about in terms of home ownership. And just for some context, we're the Housing Workforce Solutions Department. We were created in 2020, and we were brought together because this whole idea of silos that Randy was mentioning, that we were having people that were coming in for workforce development services that also needed housing assistance. We had homeless people that also were getting tied to that wanted to live in affordable housing production, but they were all working in individual silos. So in 2020, our board of supervisors brought us all into one agency under called Housing and Workforce Solutions, so that we could really start having a no wrong door approach. I would be remiss without acknowledging Commissioner Eventoff, who's a recent member of our Workforce Development Board, who's part of this, and how we are making the connections to, all right, we have affordable housing projects. Those affordable housing projects need people working on those projects. How are you training the folks that may be coming into the workforce development group that are living in our Section 8 affordable housing or other sort of things to live in that sort of passing, creating that throughput. And I'm joined today by Heidi Marshall, our director, and Stephanie Adams, our director of workforce development, because this is really an integrative approach. And just providing, it's like some of the stuff we are doing, the initiatives they're working on in terms of youth, for the youth. There's three distinct buckets, and I would say all the agencies have some pieces, but here are some three specific initiatives. One is the continuum of care. Continuum of care is largely addressing youth homelessness. And so recently we were secured a $7.5 million grant from HUD called the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Grant, where we've established a youth advisory council to help advise how we are allocating out those funds to help achieve youth homelessness. We see higher rates of amongst foster youth and others that are exiting out of the system and how they are getting entered into that space. Along those lines, we have the Youth Opportunity Centers. These are centers, 6 of them across the county, where youth can go and get workforce development training, where they can learn how to do an interview, do on the what are some of the skills you may need to pick up, maybe what are some education options, help you with your FAFSA forms to get that education piece. And the other bucket is on our community housing development, helping to expand housing options for Tay and other youth. And we have projects underway right now in Riverside, Moreno Valley, and Palm Springs that will set aside units specifically for homeless youth. And the challenge I think that we all know and recognize in terms of what has been happening over recent years in terms of the affordability crisis, there's over 51,000 renters in the county that don't have an affordable place. It takes close to 2.3 times the minimum wage in order to afford the median asking rent. And then for low-income households, 79% of which are extremely low-income are paying more than half their income, and when 7% of moderate income households. And I like to use these income bands because that's really the biggest barriers we see is in terms of how you're qualifying for affordable housing as you're moving forward, as rents have gone up, as home prices gone up. And for me, and I'm best respond with numbers, I tried to put together several scenarios on home ownership rate and what's the impact of interest rates, but also what's the impact of some of the other sort of factors. We're all hearing about the rising cost of insurance. I know of an affordable housing project here in Temecula over the last number of years that's seen their insurance rates increase by 400%. That's placing additional impact just because it happened to be in a high fire zone designation. And so you're seeing up and down the street insurance folks leaving the market, and then so folks are even afraid of even submitting claims to their insurance because afraid of getting dropped. And what are those impacts going forward? So here's just one example I found. It's an attached product, a new product that's actually a new product here in the city of Temecula. It was selling for $476,000 with a 3-bedroom, 1,500 square foot home. And so at 7.25% interest rate, in terms for a 30-year loan, you need roughly $133,000 a year to afford this at 30%, if you just do a traditional 30% of your income. And we have down payment assistance, and and I tried to plug that in there. And our down payment assistance offers assistance up to 120% of the county's area median income. So even if you receive the $95,000 or 20% of the sales price, we still couldn't necessarily serve the folks that if you're a family of 8, and then you're an 8-person household in a 3-bedroom attached condo, which is a tough general sort of piece. I said this was what the interest rates market were maybe 2020, a couple of years ago. If you're looking at that same home at $102,000, so you're looking at a 30%, $30,000 income drop of what that changes. And so now more and more folks were qualifying, and during that period of time, we were seeing families that were accessing down payment assistance from Temecula and this area and being able to actually acquire a home. I wasn't thousands, but there were families that were able to qualify. So I was, and then I said, okay, what do we do if we increase your basically rather than 30%, why don't we kick it up to 40%? So now you can a family at $99,000 can able to afford that home. But the more you increase that housing ratio, that from 40%, so that's $30,000 more. If I did it to 50%, so maybe that's a family at $66,000. But that's placing greater and greater stress on that family in case something happens. If the car breaks down, if your insurance rates go up, or if you have medical bills, or those other sort of stresses that come into play, because the 30% ratio was placed in, acknowledging there are all these other factors that are going into the pieces of life. And so I did it and this, I went wrong direction. And so I did it again, what it was 4 years ago when interest rates were lower. You're down to $76,000 a household. Now this is just an attached product. It was the only 1,500 square foot home that I could find in Temecula. Most new construction homes, the median home price are close to $761,000. And they're building, if you go to most of the new subdivisions, they're building 2,500 plus bigger homes. And the price per square foot doesn't really change that dramatically. But the bigger and bigger size is increasing the annual income to basically now getting up to $224,000. And so this level of impact of the reality, our down payment assistance and any assistance from the county, it was not necessarily going to be able to assist this level of gap. For us to come in to move this needle, we're looking at $200,000, $300,000 of down payment assistance to make this affordable to a family. And that could work for one family. I would say the city of Temecula County, we can make a policy decision to do that. But we're only going to be serving a small number of folks. And I think what I got from talking to Randy is how do we actually get this to a level of scale to move the needle going forward? And I have just some general recommendations of what to potentially look like that could go forward. One is from just a strictly development standpoint. Why are developers, why are the Beezers, the D.R. Hortons, the Lennars of the world, why are they building 3,000 square foot homes on individual lots? And some of it is the incentives that we're placing in terms of our development code and our fee structure. If you're paying the same fee for a 3-bedroom, 3,000 square foot home as you are for a 1,500 square foot home, okay, maybe I'll build that bigger home. Or if I require these certain size lots within this level of community, it's and that's all I'm going to allow within that level of space. Well, I'm going to maximize the size of the home I can place on that. Because what are the most expensive building parts of the home to build? The bathrooms and the kitchen. So you're definitely going to have a kitchen. It's then you have your bathroom. So if you do go adding square footage for a great room, it's really not that expensive because you're just doing walls and drywall and everything else. It's not that you're not adding that level of cost. But so what are the other sort of places where you can work with the development community to identify what are those levels of barrier? I was talking to a person who does ownership housing yesterday, and they were talking about the fees that before they even started, they were into the home $50,000. Just for fees for water, sewer, power, and those sort of things, just out the gate. And so that like $50,000, like as you could see before in the analysis, like if you took that $50,000, that's less subsidy that the county has to provide, or the city has to provide, or other sort of things, or even how we're identifying the financial pieces as it comes together. And I was like, I think taking a really hard look with your development team, which I think you have an excellent one here in the city, of looking at what are the barriers within that space. I was talking with someone from one of the big, I forget whether it was Lennar or D.R. Horton or one of the persons. They were saying they're essentially building the same home in Irvine as they are doing in Temecula, as they're doing in Coachella. They basically just change the amenities to get to the same level of space. And I understand why they're doing that. You're getting a certain level of scale, you have predictability on cost, that all makes sense. But are there places like, okay, here in Temecula, you come up with your own standard house plan for a 1,500 square foot home where a developer could come in, walk in off the street, and move forward in there. Like there's cities that are exploring that sort of like, not just like, that like if you do this, you're move forward and you're incentivizing through the process. And I think there's more and more ways that you can look at that. It's like, what are the real incentives? Because there has to be like a level of market rate solution. How are you doing attached products? How are you getting condos? Particularly for younger people or first-time home buyers. Like a first-time home buyer, like a 3,000 square foot home is massive. It's like the home I grew up with in the Bay Area was like only 1,200 square feet. And that was pretty much the norm. Like everyone I knew lived in homes about that size, but everything that's now being built is twice that size on the same number of lots. And so I think that's a really piece. I think the other thing, and it was mentioned before about the efforts that the city of Temecula did with Habitat for Humanity of advocating for money at the state level that's specifically for home ownership. But I would also even like amend that slightly as also what could the state's housing finance agency or others, could they be offering different types of single-family loan products that could be offering more attractive financing at interest rates at 5% or 4% or other sort of places. When we just look at it as strictly as just down payment assistance, that's sort of like money that's put in and doesn't necessarily return back. I think we as a county or and others are trying to look at like how can we have more dollars that are revolving through so that not just we're making a one-time investment, but these are funds that can recycle through. And what is that conversation at the state level of we're making all these levels of capital investments into rental options, and I think rental is very important as part of the continuum of work that we're working on. But we do need to find places of how are we allowing people to anchor that generational wealth in terms of that space and how folks are grow. And this is something that we're doing in conjunction with the city of Temecula, is helping groups like our friends at Habitat for Humanity. How are you actually getting them to build more homes? And so, Tammy, when is your subdivision starting? Next year, hopefully sooner. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But like, how do we like go from like, is it 9, correct? 6. But so how do we get from 6 to 106? And what can we be doing to create like pieces for habitat so that we can like, is there city-owned land that are other sort of places that could be used to basically incentivize ownership structures? And what could those actually be done in or moving those sort of places? Because we need treat it as with an intentionality that the market in of itself is responding to the incentives that we're providing. And right now, like the market's not necessarily producing housing that for first-time home buyers at that level. And what can we be doing to induce the market to actually step into that place? And some of that is with a degree of intentionality with groups like Habitat, because we're also seeing that now there's an article in the LA Times today about the rise of using single-family subdivisions that are being built strictly for rental housing. Well, that's, again, supportive in all of those sort of pieces, but what are the incentives that are in place that are causing that to happen, and what can we actually be doing to address some of those pieces to ensure that we have long-term affordability options for people, not just to be renters, but also have that anchor piece of ownership in the communities. And I'm available for questions after or before or now, or whenever you need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Faulkner, if we wanted to hold off on questions until after, okay,
Yes.
that's what I was
Yes,
getting.
after.
All right,
Yes.
so Connie, come on up.
Thank you, Chairman Faulkner and Commissioners, for having me here, and thank you, Randy. Oh, thank you for inviting me this evening. My name is Connie Stouffer. I am the Executive Director of the Economic Development Coalition. I'll provide just a little bit of background for who the Economic Development Coalition is for some perspective, and I'll just preface it by saying that housing is not our primary focus, but we do kind of play a role in the other elements that were spoke about previously. So the EDC is a nonprofit organization that was founded here over 30 years ago, and we serve all of Southwest Riverside County. So we serve up to Lake Elsinore, out to Menifee, all the unincorporated areas in between, and the city of Temecula. Our primary focus is business attraction, and whenever I tell people business attraction is what we do, their first question is like, can you get us a Whole Foods? And so I want to preface this by saying that's not our focus. While having a Whole Foods or a Topgolf or something like that is an important part of our community, we are primarily focused on high-wage jobs, high-skilled, high-wage jobs. And it's really a foundation of economic development policy is that if I do a good job of bringing in high-wage jobs, those other jobs come along with them. And so in so much that our focus is bringing those high-wage jobs so people can afford homes, so they can send their kids to college, so they can have life and security, and our community can be more resilient. And so we do that through a few different ways. We're a membership-based organization, so the city and all the other cities in the region are members, private businesses are members, and we use those membership dollars to go out and market the region for business attraction. So we focus on business recruitment, we focus on targeted industries, so we're not just going out for anything and everything, we're really focused on what could be successful here and what would have a reason to be here. So those primary industries that we focus on are life sciences and pharmaceuticals, because we have existing clusters here, aerospace, advanced manufacturing, and green technology. So those are our primary focuses because, one, we have some elements of those industries already here, skills in our workforce that could support those industries, and all of those industries pay high wages. And we do that through using data resources. We do FAM tours, which FAM is short for familiarization, where we bring site selectors out to our region. Site selectors are hired by companies to find them locations. So if you're a company that's in Pittsburgh or in China or wherever and you're looking to expand or have a second location or relocate, a lot of times they'll hire a site selector to find them that location. So we work really hard to develop relationships with them, bring them out here, get them familiar with our area, and make sure that our communities are top of mind when they're looking to site those locations. And we do this regionally because sometimes they need a 100,000 square foot site, or maybe they need an office space, and we want to make sure that we can find the best location and be as competitive by using all of the resources within our region to do that. And so we do that in a few different ways, and we've been really focusing a lot on foreign direct investment, so bringing in international companies to the region, and I'll talk more about some of those recent wins that we've had, but there's a lot of interest, and part of the reason why we're focused on foreign direct investment, particularly for this region, is because California has the perception of being harder to do business in, and quite frankly, it is harder than other places. Before I came to this position, I used to do economic development in Idaho. We built Chobani, the yogurt company. They built a 1 million square foot yogurt processing facility, the largest in the world. It took them 326 days to turn a farm field to filling cups. So just to get that, I always tell that story because it gives us perspective on the speed that you can do things in other states and the reduction in cost. Doing it that fast saves you money, right? So that's what we're up against. And so when we're looking at recruiting companies from Illinois or Kansas or wherever, they have that knowledge in their mind and that perception that it's going to be a little bit harder to do business here. But when you're coming from a foreign country, if you're coming from Europe or Asia, it's not harder to do business here than what they're used to. And California is incredibly attractive to enter the US market in. We have 1 out of 8 Americans lives in California, so if you're looking for customers, they're here. We have some of the best research universities, most talented workforce, an incredible opportunity for getting goods into the United States. So that's why we're focused on attracting international companies to the region, and usually those industries pay higher wages as well. We also work on regional engagement and advocacy, so in so much that there are policies or issues that might impact doing business in the region, we try to keep those tops of mind and be advocates for those and trying to bring as many resources to the forefront for our communities. One resource that I do want to make you aware of, there is an initiative called California Jobs First. It used to be called SURF. It's statewide dollars that are being spread out all over across the state, and it's being done so in regions. We're part of the Inland Empire region. IEGO is the organization that's kind of the organizer for that initiative. which is called Thrive Inland SoCal. And I've given you 5 different names for all of the same initiatives, so it's very confusing, and I understand why that might be. But the EDC is the regional convener for our southwest portion of our community. And so that initiative's been going on for over 2 years to try to gather information and develop a regional economic development plan. And the California Jobs First has 3 main qualifiers for what those dollars are meant to be spent for: job creation, helping disadvantaged communities, and impacting the climate. Just recently, the first round of funding opened up for those dollars. The applications for that funding is due June 24th. There will be 2 additional rounds of funds. So you're looking at plans and doing proposals that could impact those 3 areas. I highly encourage you to look at applying for those funds or letting other organizations in the community who are doing work in those areas apply for those funds, because we want as many of those dollars to come to our region as possible. And there's 3 different funding streams for those dollars. The first stream is just the ideation stage. You have an idea, you haven't taken it anywhere yet. Funding is available up to $25,000 for that. The next stage is you've got an idea, you've done some of the work, you've got some of the plan put together, but it's not quite very far along yet. There's dollars up to $250,000 for that stream. The last one is like you're ready to go, you just need the dollars to make it happen. That's up to $1 million, and you can apply for every 3 rounds. So really an opportunity to bring a lot of dollars in our communities that could create jobs, help those disadvantaged communities, and impact the climate in our region. Now I just want to share some of the recent wins that we've been able to accomplish by focusing on those international companies and working on focusing on those targeted industries. Those logos on the top, Stars Electronics, Easy Cycle Online, Deploy, and PVerse Economy are all international companies that we've recruited just this past year. Stars Electronics is from Tunisia. They manufacture lithium-ion batteries, and that's an incredible opportunity for our region because of our proximity to the Salton Sea, which is the world's largest deposit of lithium, and it's going to be an emerging industry, and it's so exciting for our region to be the first one to land a lithium-ion battery manufacturer in the United States since that discovery. Easy Cycle Online is a Taiwanese software company that is paired with PVerse Economy. PVerse Economy is a first-of-its-kind technology that recycles solar panels. I didn't know until working with them, but it's basically impossible to recycle them because of all the materials are so stuck together. You can't get them apart, and they end up in landfills, or they ship them to third-world countries and hope that they can use them, and it's not great for the environment. But they've developed a technology that delaminates them so they can recover up to 99% of all the materials. So that's rare metals, that's the aluminum, that's the glass. It's the first of its kind in the world, and we're really excited to welcome them. And then Deploy is an Australian healthcare software company that we recruited earlier last year. So those are all companies that came here from across the world that we're really excited about working with. And that picture in the bottom left, we've been fortunate enough to participate with the governor's delegation to Select USA. I'm leaving again for that trip in a week and a half. That's something the U.S. Department of Commerce puts on specifically to recruit international companies to the United States. And then that picture on the bottom right is an award we just won recently for an initiative that we started a year ago to help our commuting workforce. Just from our region, 122,000, 70% of our workforce commutes out every single day for work. And so we're really trying to work to help support our local employers by attracting those people to apply locally for jobs. I think there's the perception that those jobs are better, but the wage gap has closed, and when you factor the cost of commuting, it doesn't make sense to commute for most people anymore. And it helps us collect the data on the workforce that we have here, which will help our business recruitment message to saying we have all these available workers here for jobs that we want to bring into the region. So we're really focused on helping people who live in our community have the jobs that would allow them to have the wages to buy those homes. And I'm excited to see how we can partner further, if there are ways that we can continue to work on this issue with the community and with this commission, and we'd love to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Ms. Tammy.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting us here, and I just want to commend my colleagues for doing the awesome work they're doing, and we're all great partners in that space. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the programmatic side of what's happening with Habitat for Humanity and the types of programs that we're currently providing. So Habitat for Humanity is an affordable housing developer. We're a 501c3, but we specialize in homeownership. We have a focus also on preserving housing stock through our home repair programs, and we have self-development programs, as we call them, that help people help themselves through education, counseling, mentorship, and those types of things. Our motto is a hand up, not a handout, and we serve primarily 80% under the area median income. I know that topic has been brought up before in recent discussions at City Council, and the reason why we serve under 80% is because that's a requirement from our parent organization and most of the funders that provide funding to us, although we're advocating to raise that percentage. And I know that Mike Walsh talked about the 120% AMI that's happening with some of the programs at the county level, and we're very actively advocating to our parent organization to be able to allow us to move to that level. I gave a picture of our service area in Southwest Riverside County. We serve 9 cities and some unincorporated areas of the county, 700,000 residents. But one of the things I wanted to highlight is something that Connie kind of alluded to, is the fact that we're still a bedroom community. And the ramifications from that are that we don't have the corporate density that some of the larger urban areas have. And that impacts housing in 2 ways. As Connie talked about, it impacts a family's individual ability to earn income and to buy a house here locally. But as a nonprofit grassroots organization, it also impacts fundraising. And so an affiliate in San Diego County, LA, Orange County has a much easier time being able to raise funds to build houses and to begin to scale than we do here in Southwest Riverside County, although, to be honest, we're not too far behind those larger affiliates as well, but it's an important point. Why are Habitat programs needed? I mean, we've already talked about that. I know through your research you know why we need to continue to talk about housing, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of areas that I think are really important. One, in Temecula specifically, and this number changes all the time, but a family needs about $177,000 to qualify for our least expensive home, and that's almost unattainable for certain types of occupation. Also, through my involvement in the Blue Ribbon Committee and the Workforce Development Committee through the Temecula Chamber, we learn that young people, as you know, are leaving the area after they go to college and not coming back because of affordability. And I know there's been recent conversations, for example, from Temecula Valley Hospital, that employers are challenged in attracting talent to the area because of affordability. So all these factors have relevancy in the housing space. In addition, we know our population is aging and housing needs for seniors are changing, and we need to look at different ways in which we build. And I do want to throw in one thing. I know we're talking about youth housing, but I think we would be amiss not to recognize that it's not just about the future of youth housing, it's the fact that young people have incredible impacts from parents that are homeowners. So I don't know, last year, I think about this time, we did a survey of one of the projects we did here in Temecula with the outcomes, and it was incredible, the number of kids from that development that had gone on to higher forms of education, including one of the most interesting case studies was a 2-parent Spanish-speaking family went into a Habitat home in 2008, and their 2 children, their 2 girls, graduated with a master's degree in cyber security, is that what it's called? Cybersecurity, which was really incredible from 2 Spanish-speaking parents. So when we're talking about youth housing, we also have to recognize that just getting the parents into the housing and homeownership is a huge contributor to long-term sustainability and success as well. I wanted to speak a little bit about the barriers to homeownership, some of which have already been mentioned, and I just want to touch on them, but it's kind of 2 sides of the coin, and that's why I think it's so brilliant that we have the county here and also the EDC, because they're working on all sides of that. And Habitat for Humanity, our philosophy is to kind of look at the problem and dissect it every now and then and figure out how we can address these issues. So obviously the affordable housing crisis is merely a math problem. We don't have enough units, and that drives up the housing costs. We know that. But we also know there's other things on the building side that impact things that include lack of capital, CEQA permits. Developers, for-profit developers, have little incentive to build affordable homeownership units because it's just merely not as profitable. So that leaves organizations like Habitat for Humanity that are nonprofit organizations that can step up and help, but we literally raise those dollars for the subsidy that the family needs to get into a home. So it's just sort of a challenge right now. And also, again, back to living in a suburban area, that creates multiple challenges that impact the problem from multiple areas. But the other part of barriers to housing include some of the things Connie alluded to are the lack of high-paying jobs, underemployment, we would call it, poor credit, lack of a support system. It's difficult to get into homeownership, and there are a lot of amazing programs, including at the county, that some of our residents just merely don't know about. And also mental health issues. And one of my concerns, and I've been a longtime chamber board member, is that employers paying a living wage that's suitable for this area, so that their employees aren't having to drive to Hemet or to Paris to have an affordable place to live. So all those things kind of add up. These are kind of our program buckets I'm going to just talk about briefly. In the CREATE bucket, that is really kind of the cornerstone of Habitat for Humanity, constructing new units. But it's so expensive to construct a new unit. At Habitat, we raise enough money on one house on what the average grassroots nonprofit pays for their entire operating budget for a year. And so being able to partner with the county and with the city and organizations like that are really helping us to do a little bit more than we could before. And of course, when redevelopment agencies were limited back in 2009, that was incredibly impactful to the Habitat network across the state. Also, currently, we're rehabbing existing units. We're buying houses and rehabbing them and selling them to Habitat homeowners, and we're able to do that with partnerships like the county, where we're matched up with third-party lenders and have mortgage assistance that kind of help the transaction become a little bit more doable. Recently, the City of Paris stepped up and offered CDBG funding that they allowed for mortgage assistance. It's the first time ever that they partnered with us in that way. And so this year we did 3 rehabs with 2 more coming down by September. We have a deadline, so we'll do 5 this year, which we're really excited about. In the orange bucket, it's our home preservation programs, and we do a considerable number of those, from minor repair to critical home repair, and recently we got a grant from HCD that will allow us to do mobile home repair. We're very excited about that because in this whole housing discussion, we need to remember one important element, and that it's not just create new units or help people to be able to afford the units, it's also preserve the units we have. And there was a recent Harvard study that really talked about housing, the state of housing, and it talked about how many units in the country we lost last year because low-income homeowners could no longer maintain their homes. And then in the lime green bucket is educate, and that is something I'm particularly proud of this past year with the assistance of the city. They gave us seed money to open what we call the Liz Bibb Real Estate and Education Center. It is a hub that provides education, housing counseling, and guidance to families. And I'll tell you on the next slide how many advancements we've made there. It's very exciting. But I love that aspect of it. We work with families 80% and under to help them find a pathway to homeownership. But we also educate them, and when we realize they're over the income level of what we serve, we source them out to other parties. And so we've had 5 families this year that we've connected to other affordable housing resources, which we're really excited about. And I hope by this time next year I can report on how many of those went into homeownership. We also have Restores, which are a social enterprise, and we really integrate workforce development within those. We have a construction apprenticeship program that was started with your help way back when, and also a nonprofit leadership program, and we're looking at other areas that we can help people get some needed job skills. I just wanted to highlight this slide because I thought it was important because you're the REDI Commission. So I wanted you to know that 85% of our Habitat homeowners are BIPOC families. I think that's amazing. And down on education, these numbers are as of this month. We've provided 73 classes, served almost 1,200 attendees, and we've had 122 full applications that have come in. And what I always say about our application program, it's not just about the Habitat house. Maybe on the 6 houses we build in Temecula next year, 6 will get those homes. But through our application process, it's a realization with families on where they are at financially, what they can do to improve, and where they need to go. I think those are important talking points to further discuss with our youth, because I don't think that there's enough education with our young people about financial wellness and some of the things you need to do to prepare, even in choosing an occupation that might be warranted to go into home ownership someday. So those are just things for future discussions. So looking into the future, Habitat now, and also in the future, we'll be doing continued advocacy. It's remained a big piece of what we're doing on a regular basis because, like you've heard from the other speakers, having access to resources and capital is really critical. And on the homeownership front, we do not have access to that many resources in contrast to other areas of the housing spectrum. Also, we are purposefully this year going to devote a staff person, a very skilled staff person, on research and development to look at more innovative ways in which we can build and do more with less. I refer to a dear friend of mine from college had a rental in Coronado Island, 450 square foot unit. She's single. And but the efficiencies that were built in the unit were so beautifully designed, and it gave her a place to live for about 7 years before she moved away. That was wonderful. So there are different things we can do in Riverside. Habitat Riverside did some cottages that are very small footprints and do a lot on a small little lot, and we're hoping to be able to incorporate some of those kind of things that could help a younger person, a young couple, or maybe a younger senior. Also, as always, we continue to utilize best practices from other parts of the country within our network, and we're currently engaging in what I alluded to before, creative financing models to help figure out how to make a transaction work, and I'm incredibly proud of our team that they're being innovative and figuring out new ways to do things. And so we just want to continue to have conversations with all of you. We're anxious to expand our education programs, maybe to include some workshops that we can do on a regular basis for youth, and also broaden our client base to mix some incomes in our development. One of the problems with that, like I mentioned, is if you have individuals with more than 80% of the area medium income in a development, it depends on your funding source. Some funding sources don't allow it. So how could we posture a transaction where that could be allowable, where we could have some fair market value houses maybe matched with some lower AMI households, and how that might be able to help us to scale. But last thing I just want to say in closing is how much we've appreciated our partnership with the city. We have, as I mentioned, we serve Southwest Riverside County, but I can say with all honesty that all of the programs we've developed over the years started here. and with your support, whether it was home repair, education, our new construction program, and all the other things you continue to do to support us. And so we just appreciate you all so much, and we look forward to future conversations of ways we can work together to help better our community. And I just thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, so where we at?
So at this point, Commissioner Faulkner, the commission is welcome to ask any questions,
Okay.
have some further information and discussion with our speakers, and then we can go with it from there.
All right, so we're opening it up for questions from the commissioners. Any commissioners have questions? Commissioner Eventhal?
All right. Well, first off, I'm in awe knowing all of you guys and your mission and stuff. You know, it's a shame that folks didn't stick around to just really get appreciation for the incredible work that you guys do on so many levels. Witness firsthand all of it, and it's pretty remarkable. Question really, first one, I guess really for Connie, but it could be for anybody, is how do we better connect all the jobs, all the new industries that are coming to town with students that are entering the workforce? And it could be a workforce development question as well. Whether it's college level, high school level, or four-year degree or above, how do we make that connection?
That's a great question, and I think part of it is
Actually, Randy's
awareness. I think if you ask the average student in our community what types of jobs were available here, they may not be aware. And part of that's just because when you're driving around town, you don't see all of them, right? You see Abbott, but do you see all of the other companies that have really high-paying jobs here? So if you're a young person here, you may not know that there are opportunities here. Just recently, just like a month ago, the EDC partnered with some of our local school districts to create an internship program so that any student, regardless of where they are in the region, can apply for internships with employers. But we don't have very many employers signed up yet. So that's one opportunity for employers in our region to get connected with students so that if they are, say, staying here and going to MSJC, or they're not sure what they want to do with their career, or even if they plan to go to college when they come home for the summer, they can do internships here and at least build that awareness that there are high-paying jobs here in our community. That's one thing. The other thing, and I know there's people working on this in the region, is trying to attract a four-year university here. Partly because high-tech companies are drawn towards research universities. So if they're looking to place themselves somewhere, they want to be in close proximity to a four-year university at minimum and a research university if possible, because that's the talent they're trying to attract. They have partnership opportunities for research and development with those universities. So continuing to work on that in our region would be really valuable. I think we're at the critical mass to be able to support a university here and keep more of our students here for them to do their four-year university work or graduate school and stay here for their careers is a couple of ideas and things that we've started working on, and there's momentum in the community, I think, for. So.
Thank you. And also, there's also efforts to maybe offer four-year degrees at the community college level. There's some legislation we have to work on, but there are some opportunities there. I guess another question is, have we sat down with the developers who may have a bunch of projects on the books and ask them simply, what's holding you up? I use the Lewis Group of Companies example of the Villages of Lakeview. Up in Nuevo, 8,500 homes, and their problems have been really complicated. Is there anything that the county, any sort of governmental entity can do to break that thing loose?
So I think you picked one of the most controversial and complicated projects in the county as your example.
I worked on it for 20 years.
Yeah, and so and to that answer, I would defer to my dear this county COO, Juan Perez, as well as Teresa Leach, on those sort of pieces. But to the simple question, have we sat down with the development community and asking these questions? The answer is yes. And we've been having, and whether this is a traditional affordable housing developer or market rate developer like Randall Lewis or others, they all are dealing with on the same levels of issues, and they're asking for similar sort of things when going to cities. And we've been having those conversations, and I think the county, we just got our housing element approved, and after a lot of pieces, and we had a lot of trouble getting it approved with the state, and like, I'm not, Temecula, you probably had an easy going, but we had a hard time. But part of it, I think that was a good piece that pushed us as a county was actually that more intentionally identify some of those barriers. And so what we've established, like two different, as part of that, we're going to be having two different working groups, one on the west side of the county, one on the east side of the county. That's going to be meeting and checking in on the progress on the housing element pieces, because I think for that project, the large-scale projects are always the hardest to do, because smaller scale, more infill projects, and like how do we incentivize 20-unit projects, 40-unit projects at the same time of doing the large master plan communities, but what can we be doing in terms of processes as a county? And we're going to be convening those two groups on both the west and the east as part of this process on a regular basis to try and lift up those issues and bring back changes to whether county ordinances. And I think what we're trying to do as a county is in conjunction with our local cities, like if we're working on something and like making change an ordinance, using that language and providing it to cities and seeing like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Maybe you guys want to try something. And we would take like the cities, like if you're working on something innovative in terms of housing policy, we could adopt that as well, because it's housing is just like the people who live in housing, they cross jurisdictional bounds every day. And so how we can operate in that same fashion is something we're looking to do.
Finally, just thank you for sticking around and spending so much time here. We appreciate it. And thank you for your time.
All right, any other questions?
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. First, I want to thank Habitat. Like, just listening to just the level of creativity. I think you have thought of everything, the nooks and the crannies, and you've poked your head into places that most people wouldn't look. And I just want to commend you for doing such an amazing job in providing opportunity for people. So the first thing is with regard to the Youth Opportunity Centers. I'm curious as to, you mentioned that there's 6 locations. Where are those 6 locations, and what is closest to us? She finally gets up to talk. We got her. I got her.
Thank you for asking. I finally get to come up here. Good evening, Stephanie Adams, County of Riverside Workforce Development. So the 6 Youth Opportunity Centers are located in Hemet, Lake Elsinore, Paris. So those will be the 3 that are closest to Temecula, as well as Moreno Valley, Jurupa Valley, and Indio. But one thing that I do want to highlight is one of the things that we're realizing in workforce development as time goes on is that we can step away from the brick and mortar structures, and so we do have career coaches that are out in the community. So we're in the city of Temecula every Thursday morning from 10 to 12:30 at the Community Mission of Hope. So any youth can also come there at any time, and we can connect them to our programs.
That's really great information. Thank you for sharing that, actually. Thank you very much. The other question I had was for Connie with regard to kind of what we were talking about just a minute ago, and thank you for hitting on it as well with regard to just some of the jobs and the workforce and everything else. But I'm curious, honestly, I'm seeing a disconnect, right, in terms of what the industries that you're highlighting and what we're predominant in this area locally throughout, and yet what it is that we're offering in terms of continuing technical education inside of our districts. And that disconnect is kind of, that's not serving anyone, to be honest. And so how do we create an alignment there with those industries? We obviously have pathways towards education for those students who are not necessarily going to a four-year university but are looking at those vocational schools and certificates exiting high school, and yet they're not aligned with the businesses that we're talking about necessarily.
No, that's a great point, and something that we have. All the school districts in the region are participate in the EDC, and so but that's relatively new for some of them. So we are building, I think, pathways and connections so that they are aware of the work that we're doing and we're aware of the work that they're doing. And some school districts in the region, have pathways and focuses on engineering and things like that, but we could use more of them. We need more in the sciences and technology, because those are the jobs that pay really well. But we do need, for home building, one of the costs is labor, right? One of the reasons they're not building more houses is that they need more carpenters and electricians, and those jobs do pay well too. But there's also, it's an interesting dichotomy, because there's a demand for people in retail and service industries, because that's a big part of our economy. Tourism's an important part of our economy, but unfortunately those jobs don't pay as well. And so trying to balance the need of our local employers that do need those to service their tourism industry, but also encouraging students to go into the trades and into technical fields are really important too, because we can't attract companies to come to a community that doesn't have the people with the skills that they need. Historically, people used to move to where the jobs were, but now jobs are moving where the people are, and they know where the skills are that they need. They know where the software programmers are, and the engineers and the scientists and all that. And so part of the work that we're trying to do with that commuter workforce project is to identify the skills of the people who are commuting out, so that we can show and demonstrate that we have some of those technical skills in our community, so that we can bring more of those employers here. And we have gone to every single data company that there is. There's MZ and Esri and FDI Intelligence, like a million of them, and none of them can get us that data. They can tell us how many people are commuting, but we already know that. But we can't figure out what their jobs are, their wages are. And so we've been doing that by hand, tracking people where they're commuting to down to the census tract level, and then trying to figure out, well, what job is there? There's a hospital, or it's Disneyland, or it's an airport. We now have that information, so we can figure out what jobs are in those clusters and then start to extrapolate that data. But it's tedious and it takes a lot of work, and the next step is to now get more granular data for that, so that we can have some of that information. And this is a long-winded answer to tell you that it's very complicated and we're working on it. But we do need more partnership in that and collaboration on how we can connect the jobs that we're trying to get to our community, to the students, and let them know some of those jobs are already here. Like, we have some of those jobs here. I don't think they know about that.
No, I agree, and I think that identifies a major gap in some of the things that we're talking about in terms of this discussion. We're not, some of it's obviously at the state level in terms of Department of Education and how certain things are governed and what pathways we have and all those types of things that are offered. Recognizing all of that, I think you hit it. There needs to be a stronger level of partnership in terms of the industry that is here and how we're educating our students and providing them with some level of vocational skills to be able to enter the workforce that we have locally, or they will not have that home ownership opportunity, period. And this conversation is not necessarily as productive as we need it to be.
And if we can help in that, in so much that, I mean, there's a lot of the major employers that are part of the EDC. If we can help encourage them to get into the schools, or to get students into their buildings, or to collaborate more on that, we would love to be a part of that conversation and help with that.
That's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your answer.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just have one comment. First of all, thank you for hanging out with us as long as you have. As a realtor, and Jackie Steed, and then Michael Bowman also, we're in here in leadership on the state level and on the national level. We hear this constantly. CEQA, we need to do something with CEQA. The guidelines that they have is just crazy. They're not into building affordable housing. They still want to build the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square foot home. I do a search all the time. My most recent search in the MLS today was a house for $500,000 and under. One house came up in the city of Temecula. We do not have in our community the average first-time home buyer coming out buying a $500,000 house. We need to make more affordable housing in our community, so when these seniors and college grads, they want to come back to their home in Temecula. We need to do better by affordable housing. What can we do for that? How can we do that? I know CEQA, for CAR and NAR, we don't like CEQA, I'm sorry. Their guidelines is just crazy. I can say that. I know you can't say that, but I can say that.
No, CEQA is a challenge. Like, it's, I think the state has, in recent years, has offered additional levels of tools that to allow things to be streamlined through CEQA if you go through, set aside a certain number of units for affordability, or you do these sort of pieces. But sometimes when that's being presented to your traditional market rate developer, they're like, it's like, well, I'll just do CEQA. I don't want to do the affordability piece. It's like, and then it's like, okay, well, like, you had this sort of route. Like, there was a project in downtown Palm Springs, and they were having all these levels of issues in terms of getting CEQA lawsuits and all of these sort of things. And I told the developers, like, well, you know, if you just set aside 15% of those units as affordable housing, you would have gotten your parking reduction approved by right, you would have gotten all these sort of things, and you would have been able to move forward, and you wouldn't have had all these lawsuits. And it's like, oh, that's a good suggestion. And well, they just move forward and they would fight the lawsuit. So I think I'm not always like curious like where the disconnect necessarily lies. I will say there are some of these tools like oftentimes cause other levels of issues, like utilizing the lack of a better term, the end of single-family zoning, the idea of like you could put multiple homes on a lot. That isn't a tool, but it also for local jurisdictions, the county included, comes with some sort of challenges when you're because the neighbors in those communities like, well, I don't want to have 3 units on that lot. And then that could be approved by right without CEQA, you're getting around those sort of pieces, but there are consequences from that for policymakers and others and how those decisions. And so I think there are tools that are coming there's more tools now than there were 4 years ago. And I think the question that we all have as they're going forward is like, okay, how do we actually accelerate those tools to a degree of like moving those forward and recognizing there may be some consequence from angry NIMBYs or other sort of pieces, but we're going to have to take those on head on, like similar to what this committee did on earlier on the Pride Proclamation. We're going to have to take those things on head on if we're actually going to try and address this in a real fashion.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Faulkner, can I go ahead
Yes.
and, as legislative director for the city, I have to chime in on the CEQA conversation, post Michael's comments as well. We've been hearing CEQA reform for 2 decades, maybe even before that. And I concur with Michael that there are more CEQA get-arounds now than there ever were before in the books, ever. And yet jurisdictions for policy-based decisions do not want to utilize those. And, it's because the character of their community, whatever it happens to be. So I think it's easy to say, bad state, CEQA reform, but it's harder to look inward and say, okay, we have these tools, we have these by right options. What are we doing as a community to take advantage of these by right opportunities to go ahead and build more housing, including dense housing? Somebody told me years ago that density is our destiny, and not all communities believe that. And that's okay, but just know CEQA is a two-way street, right? I mean, reforms are a two-way street. If one side is giving, then the other side is not receiving, we're not making progress. So I know we do have those challenges here. I'm a board member for the League of California Cities. I'm going on 12 years. We've been having the same conversation on the board for that entire time, and undoubtedly, policy gets in the way of progress. So, that's something to keep in mind. I'm still gonna add it to the notes as a challenge and all of that, but I think I'm gonna put it down with the qualifier that CEQA reform plus acceptance of by right options, because we have to be honest about that conversation. Yeah, please, Michael, go ahead. Okay, now I got your juices flowing as well.
Well, I like 2 things I would just want to say. Like the CEQA reform, there are jurisdictions that allow affordable housing by right in certain zonings, and they do a wider level environmental review and without having everything done ministerial approval. But that gives up policymakers like a level of control of saying like, well, I would like shutters on that window, on that project, or I don't like the color there, and those sort of pieces. But if you want to move it forward, there are environmental places and tools that you do it as a blanket level policy, and it can accelerate pieces and take the policy actions that move that forward. And I would also say, like Randy hit like a topic of this idea of changing the character of the community, and I think that's a really piece particularly for this commission as the REDI Commission, Because what that fear is coming in is like that communities that were largely made up of folks look like me, there's a fear that character, it's not the changing of the buildings or those sort of things. It's like the fear of who's actually going to be moving into those folks that don't actually look like those folks. So when people use that language of you're changing the character of the neighbor, it's like the fear is not changing. Like it's like, oh, it's like a duplex versus a single family home. The real fear is like someone that comes in that doesn't look like them is moving into those areas. So I would just, I wouldn't say that at another meeting. But you had me fired up for the pieces. So I apologize.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Real deal. Yes. Questions?
Yeah, just real quick. First, great information. I'm creating new synapses over here. This isn't necessarily my jam, but I very much appreciate that last comment because that's something we really need to take account of. I think my questions are really for you, Connie. First, I was really excited when you said Whole Foods, and then really got pumped when you said Topgolf. But
And then I dashed all your dreams.
I know, it was like, okay. My question is there, well, first question is, can we see the data on the shrinking gap for commuters? Do you have data that shows that makes that argument? Because I think that would be something really relevant to our conversations.
So as far as actually reducing the commuters, I don't know that we've made a meaningful dent in that yet because we've just started the data collection portion of it.
Sorry, the cost of commuting. I think you said the gap of cost.
Yeah, I have it at top of mind because I was actually just putting it together for something today. So I looked at the average wage for an RN in Temecula, and that's $49 and change in Temecula. The average wage for an RN in San Diego is $52 and change. So less than $3 difference. But the average commuter in Riverside, I don't know if it's Riverside City or Riverside County, the data I was looking at, but it's about $8,000 that they would spend a year commuting. So they're in that $3 difference is about $6,000 a year in wage. So they're losing $2,000 a year to drive to make that wage choice. And so that's just one job, and that's apples to apples. But I don't think people realize that, partially because I don't think they add it all up, right? And I don't think they're valuing their time. If you spend 2 hours each way driving, which is about what it would be, and you commute 5 days a week, that's 45 days a year that you spend in your car.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are valuing their time. And so that's part of our marketing and our messaging to people is that think about first valuing your time. What is all that time spent away from your family worth? What's the impact on your health? People who commute long distances are more likely to suffer heart attacks, are more likely to get divorced, or there's all sorts of impacts on your life. But you're also probably not making any more money, right?
Yeah.
And so there's lots of reasons why people commute. We've been looking at this for a long time, and some people are locked into their jobs, right? Maybe they've been in a job and they've been climbing a ladder, and now they can't leave, or there's maybe not a comparable job here. But we're really working on targeting those people that we do have comparable jobs for. So that we can say, don't make that commute, work here locally, save that money, because it helps our employers. Once they can fill those jobs, then they can add more jobs. And it's really a ripple effect. If they can't fill the job openings that they have now, they can't add any new jobs. And so we're really trying to crack that problem.
Yeah, I think that information really helps with some pushback, actually, that we heard. I was with Chair Faulkner at a meeting not long ago, and there was this pushback from some local people advocating for people to commute because they couldn't afford to live here or whatever. So just having that kind of myth-busting information would be really helpful. The other question was around the high-wage jobs that you talked about. What's the impact on the local workforce? I know there was some conversation about the distinction between kind of local service workforce and the high-paying wage or high-wage jobs that you're talking about creating, which I totally get and appreciate. What does that do to the existing workforce, or does it impact them at all?
Well, I think it gives, so say you have our existing workforce, and maybe some of those are in service industry jobs. It gives them an opportunity to at least skill up if they want to and go get those jobs locally. I think sometimes if you don't know those jobs are here, you're like, well, why would I go back to school if I'm going to have to commute, right? Or maybe they just don't know what that opportunity is. We're trying to at least, one, give jobs to people who want to work in those fields, maybe have the skills to work in those fields, but also give opportunities for people who are like, I don't want to wait tables anymore, or I don't want to clean rooms anymore. I want to get a job where I can buy a home, and I can go to MSJC and get the training that I need. And we've connected all of those companies that we've recruited to MSJC so that they have the opportunity to create OJT or job training programs so that people here locally can get trained to do those jobs for some of those. A lot of those jobs, some of those jobs are going to be engineers and chemists, but some of those jobs are going to be jobs that they can get training for at MSJC.
Great. Thank you very much. Can we get the highways jobs and the Top Golf? Can we do? Sorry,
It's
thank you.
one and then the other's going to come, I feel it. So.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have questions, but I do just wanted to make a couple of comments. Thank you all for being here tonight. I know it's a long evening, and you all started your day probably the same as us, really early this morning, so we appreciate that for hanging in there. Thank you for all that you do within our community. We hear a lot of complaints, concerns, ideas, notions all the time, but the people that are in this room are doers. They're the ones that are getting things done, and we truly appreciate that. We don't hear enough in this community about what is being done to bring in the high-paying jobs, and it's obviously being done, right? So we would love to see you at more city council meetings, educating our community that this is actually happening. And I've seen this for years, even with our business development or business economic development here in the city, that people didn't know that Christine has a job and goes out and gets these new companies to come here. So I think it's really about educating our local community into what is already being done, but then all of us joining together and continuing those jobs and those tasks to make sure that we're successful in what we want to do. I love the idea of incentives for developers, both market rate and also affordable units. I think those incentives are really, really important. I think we need to work together with them and make sure that everybody gets to live together and that we get to share those experiences, and that the developers need to take that into consideration. Bringing the jobs again is huge. Those high-paying jobs is huge. We talked about our youth and what the survey came back with, and part of their concern was the jobs aren't here. And this is exactly just directing towards that. So that's really, really important. And then lastly, of course, Habitat. And, I will say that I am proudly on Habitat board. So thank you, Tammy. But educating our community is so huge. It's so important. It's not just our youth. It's our workers. It's our adults. It's our whole entire community. And so that is a huge component of home ownership, and really getting everybody to a place where they're going to feel more secure in our community and, continue to grow their kids, and their kids do so well in this community, and it's because of homeownership. And so we want to get people there as much as possible. And I think by all of us working together and continue to share data and come up with more innovative ideas, we'll make that happen. So thank you.
You guys came in the wrong room. These commissioners came prepared. We have some amazing commissioners, and you can see they have a wealth of knowledge, especially in the real estate. And we're just such a solid team and well-diverse team that really is really passionate about our city and home ownership. I was recently watching a 60 Minutes thing, and it was in a rural community where Amish plant was making garage doors. This investor came in, and then he invests in businesses to increase employee ownership, not home ownership, but employee ownership, where they do trust, they do worker cooperatives, employee ownership, trust, and stock options. It saved that community. I mean, people were about to go up in their homes. They came and gave them part ownership of this company, and what it did, it excelled the company, because when employees have ownership, guess what it does? It expands, it improves, and increases the quality of the product, because they understand it's mine now. I own it, so I got to do good with it. So, and I don't know about some of these organizations that we're talking about coming in high paying. Are they looking at options like that, employee ownership, into some of the companies? That definitely helps with home ownership. So if we're talking about that with some of these organizations we're trying to get in here, because that impacts our community and impacts their ability to be able to afford homes as well. Habitat, I really love the education piece of your component that you had up there. Really need that component needs to be pulled out into high schools. The financial wellness, the pathway to home ownership, we need to be talking to our kids well before they graduate, go to college and beyond. They need to understand this is not easy, because many of them have a false sense of security that I lived in this beautiful home my mom and them had. As soon as I step out the door, I'm getting a home just like this. Don't work that way. Let me go show you the 800 square foot home I stayed in when I was little, and then graduating, and you have to crawl. There's a crawl, walk, and then there's a run phase. And you have to go to those stages to get to where you, so it comes back to that education piece. Our community needs to be educated on these things. It just doesn't happen. There's a lot of things that goes into this. And then, let's face it, it's expensive. These young adults are not going to be able to afford housing when they graduate high school. They go to college, they're going to incur debt. But one thing they can do is when they're at home with their parents and they're getting these jobs that are not high paying, they can help their parents pay down their principal in their home, get that paid off so they can start helping them with home ownership as well. So that's options there to get the family home paid off so we can start helping out, because a lot of cultures do that. They keep their kids at home until they get married, and they're helping pay off that house, and then when they get a house, they help them get into a house. And it's just a ripple effect. So some of that's going to be that as well. And then the last thing is a question, we've been talking in our city about ADUs, and is there a city doing that right, and has it impacted affordable housing in those areas that may be doing it right? I don't know if you know that, but if somebody can speak to ADUs and what that's meant in Inland Empire and hasn't impacted the affordable housing piece for residents in this area.
I think the level of effect is like still too new to really see. I would say the city of Coachella in the desert, they received a grant to basically develop by right plans for the conversion of garage and also like doing ADUs on the property. So any one family who could come in could take those plans off the shelf and then move them forward. I think what pieces we're hearing a lot from folks is there's a group out of San Bernardino County, MPHS, Neighborhood Partner Housing Services. I'll mess up it's MPHS, sorry. But they are developing a finance tool to allow families to actually not just because that's been a challenge of folks not being able to finance those additions. So they've developed a finance tool to allow folks to actually take those by right plans in jurisdictions and then actually construct an ADU on the property, because there's the pieces of the zoning pieces that the city needs to move forward, but to turn in the practice, you also need the financing tool and the plans to make that a reality. And there are folks that are working on that. I think it's still a little too new because these are all things that have been happening in the last 18 months, how it largely is, but I think there's been good progress in that front.
Thank you so much. That's the last question I have. Does anybody have any save rounds before we go into any more? Nothing?
We do have a prefix ADU off the shelf by right, I guess, whatever we're calling it, here in Temecula.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right. Well, that's good. That's the end of the discussion. General recommendation and comments, Director, anything else?
Yeah, so in closing, I definitely want to thank our fabulous service providers who stayed with us and celebrated Pride with us, as well as partnered with us in this really important discussion. For next steps, like I mentioned, what we're going to do is we're going to take this discussion and dissect it and put it into some sort of draft report format so that we can figure out what those gaps are. You guys have given us a ton to consider, especially in the education space and the finance space and the market and job and economic space. So we'll go ahead and get that draft report before the commission in August, and then we'll be looking at a joint meeting with the City Council, most likely in September, to wrap this up. And we will definitely make sure that you all get a copy of that final report. Now, what the City Council chooses to do with those recommendations is completely up to them. This is an advisory body, and as an advisory body, they are charged with doing the work, showing their work, and then what they decide to do with those answers are up to them. So with that, I think we're good to go, and we can definitely let these folks go.
Yes, they can.
Yes,
they can.
Please,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you for the education. So just going to go down the line. I think we've been talking a long time. I guess there's no commissioner comments. Any quick comments anybody have? Okay, great. No commissioner comments. Executive Director, you got any other thing for a report? With that being said,
I have one thing. Juneteenth celebration in Menifee this Saturday from 11 until 6 p.m. There's going to be a lot of food, a lot of dancing, celebration. So go out and support Juneteenth, MSJC from 11 to 6. And That's it for me.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, we also have a mega mixer. You want to get exposed to a ton of businesses or business folks and business leaders in the community. That is at MSJC second floor on June 27th at
Be there.
5 o'clock,
Awesome. Thank you.
I think.
Two things. One is anybody who happened to see the city council meeting Tuesday or happened to be here, we recognized our unified sports, specifically out of Great Oak High School, but they were amazing CIF champions, and it was a really great night.
Yes.
But if you are looking to support unified sports here, there is a golf tournament coming up at Pechanga. You can Google it and look at it, and if you like golf and you like to support our special education students, then that event is for you. And lastly, I just want to commend the city of Temecula for putting on a really great State of the City this year. And it was amazing. We had a great time. And I would be remiss if I didn't say what an incredible team you have to make all of those things happen. And it was phenomenal.
All right, Jane.
So thank you.
We took good pictures too.
Yes.
Okay. Be quick. We had the Juneteenth event over at the CRC, the Ronald Reagan Amphitheater. It was amazing for the first time doing it over there for 2 hours, 5 to 7. Commissioner Denise Wilson had a talking point, and also Commissioner Lakers talked as well in that event to make it very inclusive and gave some education. The entertainment was well. It was 2 hours, but nothing but positive feedback from that as well. That's all I had. Anybody else? All right.
Commissioner Faulkner, can I just say congratulations to all the 2024 graduates in Temecula Valley this year?
Congratulations.
And that's all.
All right. And with that being said, the meeting is adjourned to our next regular scheduled meeting.